That was the one thing that I truly missed, the single-minded sacrifice for each other for the greater good of the team.
What does it actually take to build trust, belonging, and momentum in a country that plays by different rules?
The reality is, unfortunately, is you forget to enjoy the journey.
One of my New Year's resolutions this year was to make work more fun.
Everyone wants to dream big, but are you willing to make the sacrifice?
You spend a third of your life, 8 hours a day with people. You've got to make that enjoyable.
Like the first meeting we sat in, the first thing they said, look, we're not here to win any trophies. We're here to make memories and not win anything.
There's a weird thing that we used to say at Hollard. Don't take yourself seriously, but take what you do seriously.
Welcome to Winning the Away Game, the show about what happens when you leave home and have to leave the old version of yourself behind. Schalk Brits is a former Springbok and World Cup winner who's built a successful career in South Africa and England. Today he works in financial services at Investec, focused on helping athletes and professionals navigate life, money and identity after elite sport. Andrew is a UK-based director and founder of Capricorn Corporate Services, a globetrotter who spent time in Hong Kong, South Africa, and the UK. He spends his day-to-day work at the coalface of accounting, regulation, and helping South Africans all over the world be successful. In this episode, we want to understand the UK and what it looks like for those of us playing the away game. What carries over from elite performance into business and what doesn't? What does it actually take to build trust, belonging, and momentum in a country that plays by different rules? If you're a South African living in the UK or thinking about moving there, today's episode is for you. Flip, are you ready?
Yeah, Justinus, thank you very much. I'm very excited. The ultimate hero, Schalk Brits, having him on. Yeah, he's been haunting me in the rugby field from school days up until Stormers and then Saracens. Glad to be able to call him a friend as well as an adversary and a very good friend. And Andrew, we recently met and realized we know more people in common than we realized. I think we're in for a very good chat. Gentlemen, welcome very much. Where are you guys joining us from?
So why did I fire off? I'm joining you from our offices on Piccadilly, which is pretty much central London. And it is a sunny day here in London, but it is only 3 degrees. So we welcome the sunshine, but middle of London.
Yeah, Flip, thank you for the introduction. I mean, most of the time is actually the best time was having a beer after the game and catching up. But sitting in Stellenbosch, living in, I guess, or I'm completely biased, is one of the best spots in the world. It is great weather, beautiful mountains, wineries, students, scholars, all having fun. So I'm very blessed to be in a wonderful part of the world.
That's excellent. We're not jealous of at all, Scott. Sitting in the cold, yeah.
Especially not of the summer weather right now.
Yeah, look, I've got a t-shirt on, so it's quite nice.
Gentlemen, to start things off, we like to start the pod off with the same question every time. Your best Springbok moment, bar 1995. I was not allowed to say that. Andrew, if you want to go.
And I was literally thinking in my head, that is my best moment. You can't ban me from saying that. I've even got the photograph in my pub of that. And I think so many South Africans have got that photograph in their pubs. But that's my reminder. I'm sorry, can't think of another one off the top of my head.
Were you at the game, Andrew?
No, I wasn't. I was watching on TV, but I remember I was in South Africa. I was there. Yeah. Just unfortunately not at the game. But when that photograph came out, I thought, got to have one of those.
Scala.
Look, I mean, it's the first time you wear that shirt. It's a special moment. And I guess you can say going to Dunedin and beating the All Blacks for the first time in I don't know how long, winning a World Cup is fantastic. But funny enough, you don't remember the things that happen on the pitches. You remember sometimes the relief, the happiness after the game. But I think what's still sticking with in my mind is not those times on the pitches, but actually the friendships you make off the pitch. The beers you have in the change room, the beer you have in the hotel, the nights out, some naughty, some not. And that's actually what at one stage, like moving across from to the corporate world, the mindset was purely focused on the rugby element. And then as you get older, you start appreciating the times you had and the friendships you've built. So I guess rugby 2019, from winning a cup, that is for the Springboks, that's the most impressive outside. But in truth, it's actually the friendships I've carved over years.
It's so interesting. I often recall when people ask you what are the best times you remember, and two stands out. It was a jersey presentation in Dunedin, actually. We didn't win that one in 2012, I think, but it was just a special moment. I remember the hotel at like this little brick walls. It's funny hotels in New Zealand, but this little brick walls and just the honesty of people that's sharing. And the other one was like late night conversations in Mendoza that we all had around 2015-ish, circa 2015, we can say. We went really, really deep. And those are the things we often nurture in our old days, as we can call it now.
Flip, I guess it is those things you do remember, but the reality is, as if you want to jump straight into something that is very meaningful, is basically comes down to the thing you work for so long to acquire a certain shirt or a certain title or a certain position or whatever that might be. And for me, it was amazing getting the shirt and playing the first test match against Italy at Newlands, a place that I loved. But then almost like a week or two after that, it's when after the inbound tour, that you reflect back and you think, well, is this it? And the reality is, unfortunately, is you forget to enjoy the journey. And we, as a human race, we strive to get a certain salary or certain position or certain thing, but we forget the ride. And I think later in life, that reflected, or I hope it reflected in my personality and the way I played, is I truly loved what I do and I forgot about the result and just focus on the process. You must be very clear on your goals you want to achieve, because everything comes at a sacrifice, right? A lot of times the reward isn't worth the juice. And that is sometimes a very hard equation to calculate at a particular time with all the input sets you've got. And so it is, everyone wants to dream big, but it's are you willing to make the sacrifice? And not just a sacrifice on time, but the sacrifice of relationships, memories, other things. It's tricky.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to just comment on that as well, because one of my New Year's resolutions this year was to actually make work more fun. And even at the age of 50-something, and I think what we're doing here in the business is incredible, and I think we're achieving stuff. I realized there was one thing missing last year. I worked hard and we achieved lots, but to come in every day and have fun doing it, I think I lost track of that. And you can't be the minister of fun because it sounds fake. You've got to want to come in and, if you meet any company and they're like, so-and-so is the minister of fun, you think, it must be awful. But
it's funny you say that, because we're speaking to the Minister of Fun in Mr. Schalk Brits,
like, you've got to make it, somebody's got to lend themselves out to be the clown or somebody's got, and I end up doing it and I don't mind doing it, but it's, you've got to create that fun.
So at some point, Andrew, you decided that you wanted to leave South Africa and become a globetrotter. Tell us about that decision. What drove it? Why did you make it? And what ended up happening?
I think I put my toe in the water a couple of times. So I was lucky enough to do a postgraduate degree at Oxford, which is a fantastic opportunity if you get given it. So I studied overseas. It was a one-year degree, and I made a network of friends I had a great network of South Africans who were at Oxford at the same time as me, but it gave me the opportunity to meet people from some of my close friends still are, I'm still in contact with today, are actually South Americans, and it suddenly gave me exposure to the rest of the world and friendships with people from the rest of the world. And having done a year at Oxford, I then came back and I then kind of thought again, no, let me go and have another. Somebody said to me, come to Hong Kong, and it's a great environment, and nobody knows what's going to happen with the handover of Hong Kong to China. So I went to Hong Kong for a number of years, and I loved the environment. It's a huge expat environment, a lot of South Africans, a lot of other people, but it was very expat because most, obviously, the 95% of the population is Hong Kong Chinese, and there's a smattering of expats, but it's a very strong expat community. And I think they said at one stage it was the largest expat community in the world, because in those days Dubai hadn't really happened, and Singapore was much smaller. So it was literally the center of the universe for expats. So it was an amazing environment, and I thoroughly enjoyed my 6 or 7 years in Hong Kong. Came back to South Africa because I missed the bush, and I think the bush is a huge draw card for me. And when we talk about what I miss the most, is things like that. But came back to South Africa, and then an opportunity came up for me to do some work in the UK, and I took it with both hands. And I've been here now for 7 years, so it's kind of third bite at the apple, third bite at the cherry. Don't know which one it is, but so been here since.
Very interesting, Andrew, because that's currently, I'm in that reflection, and 100% just because of the bush. I feel like I'm so convinced. A little bit of the bush, and I think it's a bit of a Springbok euphoria that feel like everything is going well in South Africa and we want to go to. I think if we ask old Scala now sitting there looking at the mountains and the vineyards, it's difficult to find a better place on earth. Scala, yourself as well, you went to Saracens quite early in your career, actually, on the peak of your Stormers days, and probably in Springbok territory when you moved over. What was the decision that motivated you to go over?
It was quite interesting. Is everyone's got a different viewpoint on. I never thought I'll ever become a Springbok rugby player or a professional rugby player for that matter. You get a contract at school. Myself and Jean Dovelez, it was in 99, one of the first junior contracts, 50,000 Rand, off you go. And I'm like, unbelievable. They pay me 50,000 Rand to play rugby, a game that I'll do it for free anyway. So it was like, okay, fine. Then went to the university, said, okay, what's my studies? What's going to cost, budget, everything. Went to mom and dad and actually then sort of paid for my studies. That was the one thing that I knew, if I fail a subject, I'm going to pay double. So that forced me to start studying. Then after university, it was actually, okay, fine, let's just try 1 year of rugby before I do articles. And then basically the whole thing just escalated. All right, you get into the grind, you get into the team, and you sort of then start focusing on just becoming the best you can possibly be, right? Do gym for the first time 5 days a week or 4 days a week, and you try to eat better. You don't go on the piss every Wednesday night with your student mates, or not every Wednesday, but most when you can, if there's no exams or something. And then literally, like, there was such a big focus for me to become a Springbok, and wrongly so. And I think I was a bit of a selfish prick at that age, because you want to conquer the world, and it was all about me. Rugby is definitely not an individual sport, and I had an individual mindset instead of understanding the people around me. And sort of that changed with getting to know John Smith. That was actually my position, and I couldn't understand why I can't get into the team. And basically, after a couple of years of touring Tri-Nations, Super Rugby, rugby can become very mundane. The training effect was at that stage not great, because there was no fun Andrew in anything like that. And so we thought rugby was the first thing that took me abroad. And I thought, okay, fine, I can see the world. And actually one of the things that convinced me to go to Saracens was actually Brendan Fenton and Edward Griffiths. So the deal, they offered way less than Claremont. I know you played their flip or Toulouse, but at that particular stage, they promised me that I can play 4 weeks and then have one on the bench and then one travel. So they said every month or almost every month I can go see a new part of the world. And that's like London, smack bam in the middle, and I can see the world. So myself and Kalinda, now my wife, then girlfriend, then decided to go abroad, and it was supposed to be only for 1 or 2 years. And we signed one with the option of another one, because I want to go live in France and speak the language, eat croissants, and see the French lifestyle. I want to experience everything, right? And funny enough, we loved it. Saracens promised and delivered more than I could ever think. That it changed my life substantially on how I see the world. and my principles in life. But it was probably the best decision I've ever made. Myself and Kalinda is going to London, to Saracens, and to that is like on a Wednesday off. We went to, before Kalinda started working for the firm in the UK, I literally went to Luton Airport and saw what flights were available to fly in on the day and fly back. I mean, that's literally what it was. And so our experience there was ridiculous. Like even midweek, we would as a team fly to Munich Beer Festival or go ski in Verbia, or I mean, there is some crazy things we did. We went to Miami. We did everything we shouldn't do as a team, but it just made us so much tighter as a group. Like, yes, there is a place where you look at the 1% compounded growth, just change one thing, and over time the team will get better. But the one thing that you can't equate for is the emotional connection of teammates. So if you feel you understand their life, you understand their wife, their kids, you literally ingrained in their world, then you go that extra mile. And I think that was the one thing that I truly miss from a team orientation or corporate world, is the single-minded sacrifice for each other for the greater good of the team, where I think the reality of life is not like that. That was a really special side. I think people, in general, I'm generalizing a lot now, but people can be extremely selfish.
And what do you think, what's the elements that created that for you in that environment? Because, I mean, obviously you had been part of teams many times before than that. What was so different when you landed in Saracens that created the environment where that's exceptionally bonds started happening?
I think it's most things, Justinas, and it comes down to two things: great leadership. I think truly great leaders is leaders with empathy. Leads with empathy, understanding, and the task is quite clear, right? So, and it's a process driven. Like the first meeting we sat in, Justina, and this is, I'm talking about old school mindset, is the first thing they said, look, we're not here to win any trophies. And my world, and I guess we're Flip in the same school that he went to Grey and I went to Paulus, it's winning is extremely important. And if someone tells you, I'm not here to win anything, you just want to get out of there. And literally they said, yeah, we're here to make memories and not win anything. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then they said, well, we're going to train hard, but train less. And that didn't equate either. But it was all data analyzed. So it's data led. We got a quant guy in to analyze our game plans, our running meters. You couldn't hide. But then the other element they looked after was the family side. Like, how ridiculous is this? So the first year we lost in the final against Leicester, but nobody expected we were the bookies' favorite to get relegated. Second season we won. Third season or fourth season, the dynamics changed of the whole group. And the CEO and coach came to us and said, look, what's going on? The performance numbers is down. We don't know. And we all like a big number of them. We were expats. So the wives were starting to have children, more family orientated. And we said, we just don't sleep. So they said, okay, what's the solution? And we were like, okay, can we get a crash? Literally within 2 weeks, there was a crash at the club. Like, they were so invested in things. They said, okay, fine. This is the thing. We get a crash. On the Thursdays and Friday, the Thursdays and Fridays, the men can sleep in their spare bedroom, but and we'll fly them in and out that they can have more time at home. So they were so player or like employer led, like I've never seen before. And it's not just the client or the employee and themselves. It's literally the family. They looked after the family. And even eventually, then you take Justina's, then you take offers come from France or wherever it is. The guys signed for a lot less.
Andrew, what did you find the most difficult when you initially came here?
It's the really basic stuff. It's the weather. You know, I'm a Joburger. I think Joburg's got one of the best climates in the world, genuinely in the world. And Joburg's got the most amazing sunsets. And one of the things that I hone into are sunsets. It's something I share with my father, that he always taught me, look for the sunset, look for the sunset. And, when he passed away, I said, the one thing I always remember about my father is the sunset. And whenever I see a sunset, I have a little moment. I have a little moment with my dad. So the weather's a big thing for me. And I think that the toughest thing for me here is the incessant grey days and the drizzle. I take vitamin D tablets because I think as South Africans, we got a big dose of vitamin D in us. We've been brought up on it naturally. So I actually take vitamin D tablets every day because I think I'm deficient in it because there isn't enough of it.
Andrew, did you find that it has some knock-on effects on you now if you coped with it?
They call it the Heathrow injection. I got fat because you don't. And I think all South Africans that come to London, they always say, did they get the Heathrow injection? And that Heathrow injection is you just don't exercise as much as you can because you miss the sun to go and do it. And you put on weight. So you've got to try extra hard. I get home in the evening and I think, bugger it, I'm going to go and run.
Skylar, for you, I mean, what's been harder for you, adapting in the new country or adapting after you retired?
Adapting by country mile after retiring. I mean, the multiple is, you can't even put on a spreadsheet. And look, the one thing, especially for me as a very high energy individual, is I just don't, and this is maybe just London, because it's a very international, everybody's busy. But if you greet someone, not someone greeting back, probably a lot of times people just think, oh, we'll use this crazy guy. He needs to be in a mental hospital, the amount of people I greet. And the one thing that I've learned at school is that you look someone in the eye, someone looks back you in the eye, you say hello, kind of thing. That's just decent respect for the next human being. So I think that was a big adjustment. And to this day, I will not succumb to being that British, although I've got a British passport. I will greet everyone and anyone because it shows respect for the medemens. What's that? The person next to me. Because what it's actually saying, I see you as a human being. And sometimes that's the one thing that was weird from living in the UK that was different to me, is not seeing I see you.
And Schalk, also being South African, the way they don't speak to each other, and the way they're sometimes quite transactional, and they just sort of, if they greet each other, then it's just it's a hello, how are you, and it's sort of a bit, I won't say superficial, but there's no meaning to it. And something I've adopted with people is when somebody does something for you, and it's quite a South African phrase, I often say, you're a star, thanks for doing that. And I think my mother used to say that to me always, and it's something that I've sort of collected. And actually, I was dealing with, who was I dealing with? I was dealing with, I think, a medical thing. I just needed to go for a blood test or something like that. And they said, no problem, we can whip you in this morning and we can do this and go to Chelsea and Westminster and you can be sorted. And we look, and we'll see then. And they were so nice. I was actually completely taken aback. And I said to the nurse, on the phone, I said, hey, you're a superstar. You've made my day. Thank you so much. And she nearly fell over because it's not part of the English lingo to say, hey, you're a star, you're a superstar. Or they don't say that. And I found it's a bit of a secret weapon. And that you say to somebody, hey, you're a star. Thank you for sorting that out. When they see you in person, when you then get the blood test or whatever it is, she bent over backwards. I was at the front of the queue. They couldn't be nicer. But you need to, I think there's something in it that you just got to, they're not used to it, but if you put that hand out and offer it, they will, I won't say reciprocate, but they're waiting for you, when you, like I say, when I go along. So I've got this little you're a star thing where anybody does anything and they're English, because the South Africans, we say it, we sort of get it, but they're completely positively flummoxed by it. So Schalk, it was just ringing true to what you was.
And so interesting, particularly on that, we actually had a meeting in the first couple of weeks of just laying up the ground rules, not ground rules, but the principles of life. And one of it was, and it started from actually just greeting. Like if you walk in, you say good morning. Like even, I mean, my corporate experience in the UK is limited because I've worked one day a week in different organizations. But the people will walk in, go straight to the cubicle, not greet anyone, work for 8 hours, have lunch with the same person every week, and week in and week out. That's not building culture. That is actually just staying in your lane and not adding any value to the place. So we had to specifically chat about how we greet each other. And it's such a simple thing, but such an important thing of saying, I see you, good morning. How was your evening? Or is there something that happened in your day? Because that's the first place of empathy where you asking someone, actually, Andrew, how are you? Is everything okay? You don't look so great this morning. It is, and that's a small change that any organization, any place can do, because the reality is, even now in corporate world, I do not understand. It blows my mind that people will work. As you said, I think it's even more if you take on the working hours, a third of your time being spent at the office. You work day in and day out with them, and you do not know the guy sitting next to you. How? Or you only know the 5 people sitting in your range of cubicles. I should have more empathy towards that, to the people that don't, isn't this similar to me, but it is such a waste and a sad reality that there's so many amazing people and you're closing yourself out to people around you. It is, and it's very hard to build a culture like that.
Yeah, that is quite interesting, and it's something that, for me personally, was the toughest thing, the transition from rugby or sporting environment into the working environment, is because the culture sort of comes automatically in a sporting environment. Up until a moment, there's brutal honesty on a permanent basis. So, up until you even shower together, which is difficult to replicate in a corporate environment. But so these little nuances and Scala, that's something that interests me from you, because you're not scared. You go ahead and you've got your personality and you're positive about everything, and yet you've openly spoken about it, how difficult it was for your transition, and you did twice. You had a corporate job, and then you changed again now. So what did you find the most difficult, or what can you tell people out there, sporting stars looking today?
Well, I'm just going to give you the facts, Flip, and you understand the facts here. So both of us studied. We probably one of the unicorns in sport itself, because unfortunately the sporting environment doesn't give you, they do give you accessibility to studying. They always say you need to go and study, but the reality, they do not give you time to go and study. The programs they do, the coach's mindset of, sometimes, I don't know if you had this, Flip, if you have to go study, they say no, but you're not focused. Or, I mean, there were some ridiculous conversations that I had with coaches saying, look, I need to write these exams and it's going to cost me an extra year of studies. And they just give a damn, because they are your employer to employee. And I'm like, how much time I've sacrificed and all the Wednesdays out and Saturdays out, go sit behind my books, and because you are my employee and I do have respect for that, they just decided no. But going back to the end of your career, that's the beginning. So I would definitely say get a particular skill set, and the reality is it's very hard to get any practical experience while you are in a professional career. But the thing is, our peers, Flip, is they've compounded knowledge, growth, and technical skills over a very long period, where if someone comes into the business environment and I can remember, let me rather use this analogy. Like, I did my first discounted cash flow and I was super excited. And look, it was probably the worst discounted cash flow they've ever seen, but it was my first. Everybody that does anything for the first time is cuck at it. They're not going to be good at something. It takes time and effort to acquire. There's a great book. Sorry, I'm jumping around in thoughts now, but it's everyone is crap in the beginning with something. But if you go read the book Bounce and Black Box Thinking, both from Matthew Said, or if you read Atomic Habits, or they'll all come down to the same facts of actually building expertise over time. And that was the biggest reality check flip when I got into the corporate world is my peers has got 15 years of experience in managing corporate relationships because anyone is a relationship for me. In rugby terms, sadly or greatly, you don't get grin fucked. So they will tell you something, yes, it's okay. But in rugby, if you shit, you shit. You tell to each other. You're straight honest. You man up about it. You're more real. Where in the corporate world, you can't say or think. You have to be extremely diplomatic in your answer because you're offending someone. And we're doing a discredit to each other by not being straightforward. So that those kind of culturally was totally a mind shift. Secondly, coming to the realization I've got 15 years behind my peers. And the reality is I missed my 20s, early 20s, late 20s, early 30s, where you can work incredible long hours to get a specific skill set because we're in a different phase of my life. My most important thing in my life is my core is my family, my wife, my kids, and my mother and father, and now my in-laws. But and I'm not willing to sacrifice them to gain quickly or improve the compounding effect to the detriment of my family. Unfortunately, you always will say there's a lot of soft skills, but I can never catch up on that. So you have to sort of find out your own niche and what makes you special within the working environment that actually can add value because someone employs you to add value to a company, either on revenue or culture or whatever that might be. And that's a difficult place finding that exactly flip. So that's just how I've experienced it. And the one thing is there's a very, very small percentage of any athletes that can actually have a career after sport and don't have to work. Secondly, even if you do have enough, you need a purpose. So I don't want to be negative about it. I'm just laying out the facts. The reality is there's other things that was amazing that I will never, ever sacrifice or I wouldn't change. I would love, and I did love the what's that in English? The gift, not the privilege to be a rugby player, the memories I've made, the places I've seen, the circles that I've moved in and out. And Simon Sinek has got a great thing. He talks about the plastic cup or the cup, and it's only a title. So when it comes and it goes again, it's the title or the individual gets that, not the person. So it's sort of staying humble in where you actually belong.
That's very insightful, Scala. Thanks, man. And the discounted cash flow is quite funny because that's the exact example that I use to a lot of people, because you always, some people are reflecting on what they're going to do after rugby, and they're trying and they're doing some internship somewhere, and and you just have to tell someone that you're never going to be as good as a guy that's been hitting Excels since 20 years old. That's all he's been doing all day while you've been running around in the mud. You will never be as good as him, but you will be know how to work good in a team, and you're not scared of going to sit in front of a CEO and explaining value, or building culture, as you said, or building revenue in a company. That's such incredible insights, and I had a very good laugh at myself now.
But what's interesting, Schalk, there is I really liked how in real time you were talking, and sort of the message I got that once you realized almost the deficiency, so that the compounding that you've missed, and you had a great view on what was important to you, you had to go back to the drawing board and somehow solve this equation of how can, with the assets you have, you can now add value to the employer in the context that works for you and works for the employer, and creates a value for everybody in that equation. I think that was quite an amazing insight.
Justine, sorry, it wasn't insight. It was actually almost cracked. because I was in the asset management side of a business. So I'm definitely not going to mention it. But the reality is at some stage you go so hard because your nature as a player is extremely competitive. So you're trying to compound. You make the effort to actually. I did try to catch up, and I'm still trying to, a certain extent, catch up. But the reality is something has to give. You've only got limited amount of time. There is a limitation on time, and then you have to do your own work as well. So you feel, firstly, from a personality perspective, you feel as a failure because you're not as good as you think, or you're so far behind. Your boss has employed you to do X, Y, Z because there's certain elements of potential he's seen, and he's paid you normally more than you actually deserve because of your, I wouldn't say knowledge, but a profile is a good way of saying that. And so then you work harder because you don't want to disappoint. There's a lot of things. I actually went on a sabbatical for 18 months saying is what is really important in my life. And I had unbelievable mentors that actually warned me because I was going down that thing. And the reality is I almost lost my family, not because I was unfaithful, there was anything else. It was just the reality is I was losing connection with my wife and my 3 kids. And because I want to succeed in a profession that I thought was what I wanted. And unfortunately, a great mentor of mine said to me, Scala, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? He says, just remember the following, Schalk. In 6 months, or the first time you die or you get fired, either one or the two, people will be sad, and it's.
So the first time you die, I hope there's not another time.
Yeah, the only time you die.
Then we talk to somebody really special.
Andrew, I probably died emotionally, to be fair, but the reality is, for the first 2 weeks or 2 months, people will talk about you, and then they will somehow find someone else in your role, and I'm talking business-wise, and 6 months, life will go on. But the only people that will cherish you more than that is your family and your close friends. And that is just the reality of how it works, is we are, and we don't want to believe it, we are replaceable. That's just from a working perspective. But you can't replace a husband, and well, maybe you can, but you can't replace a father or a mother or a child.
I think that's such a moving train of thought, right? That Afrikaans, we would say that nuchter, that fundamental realization of what your life is about, or what you want your life to be about. And I think for me, moving countries and starting over, I felt a lot of that same challenges. I didn't have a network in Canada. I landed here and I knew not a single soul. And now I had to start over and build something. And I didn't get the jokes. I didn't understand the humor. I didn't have a network. They would talk about TV shows that was in the 80s or 90s, and I would have no clue. Or I would try and make a joke that would have been very funny, I thought, in South Africa, and nobody would have a clue what I'm talking about. So that adjustment for me was quite challenging. And then especially I moved in my late 30s, so we already had kids, and my wife had a career, and she had to start over. So that adjusting was quite challenging for me as well. Andrew, for you, what was it like, the adjustment and starting over first in Hong Kong and then in the UK and in your family environment? How did everybody adjust, and what were some of the biggest challenges you guys faced in making those leaps?
So Hong Kong was actually quite easy because it was the expat capital of the world. So a lot of support, a lot of friends, a lot of family. My parents used to come. I was a youngster back then. My parents used to come over and visit me, and they loved coming to Asia. So we had a lot of support. My brother, even my grandfather came to visit me, and he must have been in his 80s, and they loved Hong Kong. And I remember taking him up to the top of the peak in Hong Kong. And so I think there was that fascination from a family point of view. They wanted to come and see me. So I had a lot of family support. And it's incredible, that Hong Kong experience when I moved to the UK, a lot of people that I knew in Hong Kong were English. But the weird thing is they knew me not on English terms because we were all foreigners in Hong Kong. So we were all expats. So they knew me on equal terms because nobody was judging anybody. Where do you fit into this English society? We were all a fish out of water. So how do you fit into the Hong Kong society? You're all neutral. So you all make friends. And when I moved to the UK, I've stayed in touch with a lot of English people that I befriended in Hong Kong, and they've welcomed me with open arms. So I had a network here from my Hong Kong days, and they passed the stage of sort of pigeonholing you and judging you. Oh, he's a South African, and does he live in Wimbledon and wherever all the South Africans live, and oh no, he's from whatever, and a lot of English people try and sort of judge you. Well, where does he fit into a society? And I was very lucky that I arrived here to a circle of people that we'd met in neutral territory, being Hong Kong. And so nobody's judging you. You've all become friends. You've all been friends for 10, 15 years. So I was lucky. And, Justine, it's a completely different scenario to yours. I walked into a society here that was welcoming and friendly, and weekends away because they all live in the country and this kind of thing. So you go out at weekends and you have fun with people that are not trying to suss you out and size you up and don't understand the South African jokes because they've heard you say the jokes before, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They know that we're besotted about rugby, and they know that we like this, and they know that I like cars or whatever. So it was actually quite an easy move for me to come here and do that. But I meet a lot of South Africans who have moved here, and they find it, as you say, it's tough. They don't do the same jokes. The weather is upsetting, back to the weather thing. They don't do the same jokes. They don't experience the same sort of culture. An Englishman gets excited if he puts a hamburger patty and a sausage on the braai. I can't do it. I can't do sausages on the braai and call it a braai. But they do it. And you say to them, let me take care of the braai. You've had societies before. Let me do the societies. And I zoom off to the South African shop down in Roehampton Road. And Schalk, I don't know whether you remember the South African shop in Roehampton Road. It's called St. Margaret's Foods. They've got milk tart. They've got societies. They've got just the most amazing food. And also Mrs. Ball's Simba chips, which I buy by the packet load, And so I think it's very important to still, and in London, we're very lucky. We've got amazing access to bits of our culture that are special. And honestly, you can walk into Victoria train station, you can walk into Waterloo, and there's a Savannah shop there. So your touch points with the special things, and you can buy your Canon Cop wine at, all those places. In fact, you can buy these things sometimes even at the Waitroses and the supermarkets here. But I think it's very important to have those touch points with your familiarity. So that sometimes at lunchtime, I'll go from here, it's a good walk across Green Park, and I go down to Victoria train station and I buy my biltong there because I think Savannah's got the best biltong in London. And I go and buy my biltong and I come back and it's probably a 40-minute, 25 minutes there, 25 minutes back, 50 minutes there. And it's worth it. I've got biltong for the weekend and I bought it on my Thursday or whatever. So I think all these little things are really important and they support you. And often at weekends, I'm a regular visitor. I just kind of feel like milk tart. And I'm going to take milk tart to English people and educate them that this is a pudding made of condensed milk. And they look at you like you're mad. And then they all taste it. And they're like, where do you get this from? So I've got English people that are now customers. And I think I should be getting commission from these guys at that South Africa. But I think these are really important points. And, I still call an Archie. They call it a Satsuma or a kumquat or whatever. And I'm like, won't you pass an Archie? Now they all know what an Archie is. I'm not going to call it anything else. But I think it's really important to give that, because it makes you also feel part of something else that we miss.
Andrew, the one thing that we had a specific strategy. So it was interesting with, I guess, if you talk about moving to a new country. So I got advice from a couple of friends, as I do, and took that advice. So two things I did. I started going to a pub. Like, I don't even drink beer. I like whiskey. I mean, all the fines we've had in Kentucky's or fine meetings with the Springboks, I can't swallow a beer. I hate a beer. The amount of times I had to puke after a fines meeting, the taste is just horrendous. But saying that is, when we went across, is we purposely did not mix, and this is not purposely, but we were a lot more inviting to the British people. So we went to pubs, especially because I wanted to know my neighborhood. And actually, we became extremely, still unbelievable friends. There was like 5 couples that came out last December to our house that was friends of us and my boy, or our boys, and came and visit from England so that the relationships that we built there is very strong. But it's literally, in the beginning, it was going to pubs, then through not meeting people. And then the weird thing is telling them, so I couldn't understand why I wasn't getting invites to their house. So I thought, okay, fine, maybe I've got something wrong. And one of the guys actually said, Neil de Kock said, invite them into your house, make a South African dish, don't like, and it was, even the house was so small, it was, we couldn't fit everyone in, but it was very warm and it was nice and it was so great just to, and later on then it just takes time, because I wanted to integrate with the Brits and see how they live and how they do things. And even I had 3 boys that was born in Luton and Dunstable. We've got very strong relationships. And the reality is we didn't think about coming back to South Africa. We were extremely happy in Harpen, and beautiful little village, or it's now, I guess, a town, just closest in Albans, but it is a place we loved. And just by chance, you know, we only would have come back to South Africa for 18 months. I was where Flip studied. I wanted to do my MBA or executive MBA and started working for Reinvent. And then I started working for Emgro, and things escalated from here. And actually, it's that particular time I look back at the UK as it was such a blessing to make friends like that. But this is now just a new chapter. And I must say that once again, on your decision to go to Canada or whoever goes abroad, it's a big decision to make, because you're sacrificing unbelievable weather, people that you've belonged to or feel you belong to, and what is the price you are willing to pay to make that sacrifice. Because as soon, I don't know, I can remember living in the UK, all you read and see is crap news to justify your decision to live abroad. Now, there's other reasons why you go abroad, but I think for me it is still an unbelievable country to live in, and I'm very fortunate, and I'm biased because I've got opportunities. I live in Stellenbosch, and not everyone's got it easy in South Africa. That is the reality. If you go to, we do outreaches with Lawyers Sports for Good. It is, you see the poverty that you won't see anywhere else that I've been in my life. But it is, while you have the opportunity, it is an amazing country still to live in.
That's also the advantage we have as South Africans, is we know both sides of the world.
Yeah, we can come back. That's why I keep my golf memberships going, because if I know I can come back, and then I don't want to let them go and think, oh, I've got to rejoin. So I keep it going, and it's that connection back to South Africa. You know, I want that option. I want that golf membership to stay. So I keep it going.
Where is it, Andrew?
It's at the River Club in Joburg.
What an unbelievable golf course. And a great clubhouse. It is
best in the world.
Yeah, it is a special place. It's a hard golf course though. Best greens in Joburg.
Well, Schalk, you must come and play. You must come and play there. Sounds like Flip is more my handicap, but
we'll get someone to keep Schalk busy, and we can keep in the shade. Yeah,
let's do that.
But it was like, I don't know, I've played so many rounds of golf in the UK while living there. It was always for me weird that the halfway is a sausage in a bun or bacon bun, And so
over here in France, it's non-existent. There's no halfway house.
You just keep going. I like after 9, I'm like, well, where's my sandwich? Where's my beer? They're like, oh, no, we just keep going. And you're not even anywhere near a clubhouse. You are in the middle of nowhere, and it's the 9th hole. And you kind of think, well, maybe this is like River Club, where it's on the 11th hole, because, River Clubs are funny on it. And they're like, no, there's nothing at 10. By 11, I'm looking for a building. No, there's nothing at 11. And you just keep going. And they're like, okay, we've done 18. I'm like, okay, well, now, whatever.
And then you go to US and it's the opposite. You're driving through a mall on the night almost,
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Convenience store.
So Flip, in Japan, you have to sit down, and it's almost an hour. You sit down, you have proper dinner, or not dinner, lunch, or proper halfway. It's like you have to enjoy that journey. It's experience. Like, yeah. Anyway.
So let's go full circle then. Schalk, you end up back in South Africa. Andrew, you making great progress in your career in the UK. What's the future like? What do you see as your full circle in the next 5, 10, 15 years? And where do you want to take the next decade or two?
Funny you asked me, Justina. So I'm 58, but I feel 45. So I feel young. I have my business partner in the business and shareholder with me is 44, 45. So I think it also helps that you work with people that are, young and whatever. So I feel 40 something and not 58. So I see myself doing this for a good at least 5 years. I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm loving the clients that we're accumulating and the friendships and the relationships that I'm building on a professional basis, as well as the friends that I'm nurturing and growing and experiencing here. So I'd say at least 5 to 8 years. I will definitely keep going here. I've got my British citizenship. But a friend of mine said to me the other day, hey, shouldn't we start looking at places in Plet so that we can retire in Plet? And I'm like, no, way too early. And she said to me, no, we've got to start thinking now about 10, 15 years if Plet is the place that you want to go. And I actually, in my mind, I kind of think it's very important that when retirement comes, that you're not, somewhere in an English old age, setup. You want to be with your mates and you want to be with people that think like you, do like you. So I reckon that retirement, if and when, which is maybe 10, 15 years time for me, probably be 70. I mean, the chairman of our own group is still working and he must be close to 78-ish, and loves every day that he works. And so it's very encouraging that we can carry on for as long as we like, which is a huge inducement to sort of, if you're still enjoying it, why not carry on going? But I think that in 15 years, I do imagine that, I'm around and playing old man's golf in a golf cart, which is straight down the middle, but 100 meters every time. And I kind of imagine that that's what I'm doing. In fact, my mother is retired in Spain, and she goes every, I think 3 times a week. She goes and swims in the sea, aged 83, with a bunch of mates. They go down and they swim. And I kind of think, that's what I want. I don't necessarily have to do it in Spain. I'm happy to go swimming in Plet at the age of 83 or whatever the case might be. So I see myself back home ultimately, but that could be 10, 15 years. I'm gonna enjoy and really, give it horns here for a while, but make sure that I enjoy it, so that by the time I get there, it's a natural sort of thing to do, rather than I'm exhausted and now I have nothing else to do, and this is what I should do. I want it to feel like I've really loved it, but it's time to love something else.
Scala, 10-year plan?
I don't have one. I don't. The reality is I don't want to get emotional. A very good friend of mine passed away this week. So the fact is we've got this plan that we set out, but we never know when God is going to take us away. So I really try to live every day as best I can within the limited time frame that I can. It is, for me, is making the most be the best I can be, and try to compound myself over time. I'm in this race by myself, and I'm not competing with anyone. It sounds horrendous, or not horrendous, but it looks like it is. There's certain expectation, but for me, it is. I want to compound. I want to be a better version of myself every day, and if I can do that, then I'm fulfilling my hope for myself. Yeah, from a working perspective, I want to know more. I'm inquiring. I'm growing. If I don't understand, I say, shit, I don't know. I just don't. I don't know. That's fine. Teach me. I'm willing to be taught. I've got a soul of growth and understanding, and I won't bullshit anyone. And so from that perspective, it is work-wise, I want to keep on improving and understanding and grow my competence within the thing, but never sacrifice my values. On the family side, I want to be an unbelievable husband to my wife, and I want to make memories with her across the world or in South Africa. And with the kids, I want to be a father that they can aspire to be and be better than me. And so I've learned so many things through being a father that I never thought I would ever know, because you think you want to push down information and values, and the reality is they teach so much to me about myself and things that I want to do different. And you've got all these great plans, and then eventually it comes back that your plan wasn't that great. But add to it. So the things that I praise, and that's coming from back of my experiences over life, I never praise performance. I praise input. I praise dedication. I praise behavior. Like what I've learned, you can win in a match, but you can lose in the game, the longer game. Meaning that the way you behave on the thing, and like a prime example is Federer. For me, it's like he won most of the games, but he's won outside of the game as well. He won over hearts, and so that is my aim in life, that I can glorify my wife and my kids and be a version of me that I hope I can be better every year. And that's basically how simple that is.
That's poetic, man. I love it.
It's beautiful, Schalk.
Well, we were very lucky to have both of you on today. I really appreciate it. It was a fantastic conversation. Thanks for the insights and thanks for sharing. None of these journeys are easy, but hopefully we can have fun along the way.
Thank you, Justinus. Thanks, Flip. And thanks, Schalk, for all your insights. Lekker.
Andrew, sorry, I apologize. I spoke so much, and you are the guru here.
No.
But if you're in South Africa, I would love to have a coffee with you.
Coffee and a game of golf.
A coffee and a game of golf, and then definitely a beer afterwards. No, not a beer for me, but a Steelworks or a whiskey.
That sounds great. I'd love to do that.
I'm joining. I'm riding with.
Flip doesn't need any excuse to travel to South Africa.
No, I'm going often.
Thanks for your time, gents. That was wonderful.
Thanks, Andrew. You're a star. You taught me something new. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Lifton.